Hey people, it's Sunday morning, about June 7th or so, and I'm going to show y'all how to install a mini split air conditioner. You could buy the air conditioning units and buy all the tools it takes to install it and save yourself $1,000 still. I've been looking at these for a while, mainly because they're really quiet. So this be the third one that I installed. I did a couple for my sister, one last week and one a year ago. So if you Google shopping, you can find these units up to 18,000 BTUs for less than $400 all the time. I think I've got 366 invested in this delivered. And they'll deliver, 3 to 7 days. They're here in America. I bought this off of Temu. And this vacuum pump, I think I've got $130 in that. It come with gauges and many fittings, and it's not necessary. You're gonna need a vacuum pump, and you can get the right fitting you need. That comes with a valve stem tool for about $12 to $80. $12 from the same place as Temu, but the gauges will work, and they'll work on your automotive and whatever. Need a couple of crescent wrenches and maybe a tape measure or a level, a hole saw. You can get the dimensions when you open up the box. You'll see a little tube, and it lets you know what size hole saw you need, a drill, and some type of glue. I use these I have in stock. I use them because I know that they stick to galvanized metal. I've been using them for years on galvanized metal. And when I searched online, what's the biggest problem with these units? They say the Chinese fittings are junk, the copper line fittings. And they say this is the stuff to put on them. It just comes out like a clear glue, and it's forever stays soft and doesn't get deteriorated by refrigerant. And you just use this on the refrigeration lines when you put them together, and you shouldn't have a problem. When you open up the box, usually the first thing you'll see is a template. And what this is doing is just showing you the bracket that holds the unit up and where the hole is going to be. So the biggest problem that I've had with these is the Chinese stud their houses closer than we do. We stud them on 16 inches, and so you can't get 16 inches to lay in here. They got these brackets centered up at 324 millimeters, 12.77 inches. So what I do is I line it up where I can get these screws go into a stud. And I know my next stud is over here at 16 inches, which I can't reach it. So I just lay that glue on the back of the bracket. You'll see on the back of the unit. And I use some screws into the studs over here. And on this side, I might use a little fatter screw, and just to hold it snug till the glue dries. Most everything I build with aluminum, the screws are there till the glue dries. The screws rust out in 50 years, and the glue holds it together. So when you find a place to set the unit, this outside square is going to be where your unit goes. And you see this hole is going to be on, if there's a stud here and there's a hole here, make sure that you're not going to hit any piping or electrical in the wall over here. But this hole, if you're putting on an exterior wall, this is where you're going to pass your lines through. So this is what you'll need that hole saw for, 2.5 inch. And there's a couple more instructions you'll find in here in the installation manual, but they want you to keep this edge of the unit 13 inches away from the wall. And same on this edge. And I think you'll find in the manual, it'll tell you to keep this 7 inches from your ceiling height. So inside the box, here's a bag with a manual and some anchors, some sheetrock anchor screws. And couple rubber pads, 4 rubber pads. This seems to be for the base unit. Haven't seen these in the others. And this is like a little wall hanger for your remote control. The remote control. It's going to come with a couple wires. This one's going to be long, and this will be hooked up to the unit, and it'll run out the wall to the outside unit. This is your control lines. And this is what that unit looks like, and you might find this bracket on the back of it attached or in the bottom of the box here. But this is going to go on the wall. This is the face out. This is the bottom. So you're going to anchor this bracket on the wall, and it's just going to hang on these hooks on the top and clip in the bottom. So this is the back side, and you can install these 2 different methods. The best method is to put it on exterior wall, so this pipe work is going to run straight out the wall and down. And this is the high and low pressure line, and it's a drain line, so this has to run down. And that's why that hole they showed you goes all the way to the bottom of the unit. You don't want this to raise up any. And you'll hook up the electrical line that I showed you, and it'll all tape together and pass through the hole in the wall. Or the second method, if you're not putting it on an exterior wall, you can pop this out and you can run these lines out. So they'll run across the wall to an exterior wall. And you'll probably have to buy an extra set of lines. So they vacuum seal these units at the factory. And so this is the best check here. Before you start cutting holes and hanging, unscrew this and listen for that vacuum of pressure. If you don't have that, you might want to hook up the vacuum pump and gauges or do a pressure check on it to make sure the unit is sealed. Because what they'll do is they'll put a vacuum or a pressure on this unit. But this unit has the full charge. You won't have to buy any Freon to put in here. The bottom unit is sealed off. So after you install this, you go out and install this bottom unit, hook up all your lines. You can put a vacuum on it, and all you're doing is vacuuming out the top. You're clearing, vacating the top, and you just open the valves on this after, and it fills it with a full charge and it runs. You don't need a license. You don't have to go buy Freon. It's all in the kit. So inside this pack, I found 2 rather thick manuals. One for user manual, all the Wi-Fi, and what I don't care about. And a rather thick installation manual. And this one's much thicker than the last 2 I did. But I'll find this page in the manual on installation, and it says 8 inches above from the ceiling to the unit and 13 on each side. So when finding a place to install, the main thing I think about, is where I want this in the room. And another thing is where I'd want this outside unit. Outside, you want to make sure they can get some air, but it helps if you keep it shaded. This is a heat pump, and what it does is it shifts the direction of the Freon, and so it can either cool or heat either way. But I'm thinking that I want this outside unit on the west side where I'll have shade. It'll keep it cooler, spend a little less money to cool. As opposed to this east side where I have all morning bright sun. In the back I have a lot of trees. So for several reasons, I'm going to put this back in this corner over here. Beside, this is, I must have put this in 20 years ago when I built this. And so I found this stud line here by putting a light on it and finding a dimple where there was a sheetrock screw. And I drew a vertical line down it. And so I'm going to lay this template up here. And The template's going to hold me 1 inch on the bottom, so that'll be plenty. And I'm going to line this where these screws are going to hit this line here. So I know that these screws are being a stud. And so this side, I'm going to more depend on glue. But I may even have a header or something else to screw this to. I'm not sure. I don't remember. It's been 20 years. But I'm going to put glue on the back of all this. And then I'm going to put a couple screws in here. And then I'm going to put a couple tacks in here if there's no wood behind it, just to hold it snug. And I'm going to give it a couple hours for the glue to dry. So this box with this outside unit, it's going to have some packing. It's going to have a bag of goodies. This is a extension drain hose, a little tube that goes through the wall, some grommets, a little bag of clay, and a couple rolls of tape. Depending on what unit you got, a little extra insulation. And on the two sides here, it's got the copper lines, the high pressure and the low pressure here on each side. And it's a good idea that they put this seal on here. Keep any bugs from crawling up in your line. And so you might want to get an idea how long your line is before you install, where you might be able to put it. And it's really not a problem. You can add line if you have to. You'll just have to add a little bit of refrigeration to the system, depending on how much line you add. And the charts is all in the book of how much. So I've never been one for following instructions. And if I run that pipe through here, I'll have to put a couple angles on the outside to get it around this old outside unit that I'm going to leave there for backup because it still works. But I'm going to change this hole over here to the center. And so instead of having to put two bends outside close to the wall, I'll just bend these pipes here before I poke it through the wall. You can shop around and find this tool. I think I found this at Home Depot online, and for less than $17, had it shipped, maybe down to $13, but you can still get all this for less than $500. So I'm going to start by popping my hole here in the center. I'm going to keep it the same height, compared to that line over there, just above this line. And just pop through the sheetrock. Be careful you don't get the drill bit caught up in the insulation and pull it all out of the wall. I'm going to clean the old insulation sheetrock off the bit, and then I'm going to use this to cut that insulation easily. I'm going to aim it down just a little bit to get a hole started outside. And then I'll go outside and finish drilling that from the outside. So I'm going to find where this hole come through outside and pop my hole saw through there. I say I might ream it a little bit because my hole saw is a little bit smaller than this. And so I'll have to cut it a little bit with a knife. And this is a two-hand job, but I'll run my blade through at an angle like this, and this will leave me a mark as how far I have to go, and then I'll reach back in and cut the inside. And I'll finish it up with this rasp file just till I can get this tube through. It's about like that, so I can get a good tight fit around there. Now I'll go on the inside and rasp that out. Now I'm going to poke this through the hole and push it flat and go outside and mark it and see which one of these lines I need to cut it off at. Just go in like that. And maybe with a twist I can get it to poke on through. And the last two kits, they only came with one of these rings. They didn't even have the rest of this. So I'll just put a mark on here, and then I'll pull that back out and cut it off with a razor blade. And so my finished product should look like that. And now that I see my hole's gonna work out there, I'm gonna get the marks for this, get this lined up. I'm gonna get it screwed up and get the glue drying on it while I bend the lines. So I have faith in these sheetrock screws holding on this side. So I'm just gonna put some glue on the back side of this. And then I'll add enough of these screws in these holes and won't strip them to hold some tension on it while it dries, and it should be plenty. And I won't have to give that any drying time because I did find a stud back here all the way up. So I'll lay this template on top of this unit and line it up here. And it'll leave me a mark here. I can see that I need to bend these just at the center point marked here. Just about that hole down there. But before I bend these lines, I'm probably going to turn on its back to get this wire in here. So I'm going to flip it over and figure out how to pop this off. This will just lift up, I believe, and you can pull a couple screws and get to this panel where this electricity is. There's a couple tabs on each side where you can just raise this lid up. And you'll have to do that when you clean filters. And on this side is a little cover. It'll tell you how to wire it. Screw here to pull out. It's got a couple of different methods depending on your unit. But everything you need to know is going to be underneath that cover. You got a ground, which is going to be green. And then they'll be numbered 1, 2, and 3. And you'll see that number right here on the wires. And just check the two ends and make sure that they put the same number on the same color wire. So regardless, the wires go to the right place. But you see that's 1, 3, and 2 down there is the white. So I'm going to go from the back. I'm going to poke this wire through this hole here first. And they'll come up through there. And then I'll pull this screw and clamp this wire into here. Then wires 1, 2, and 3. And the ground, you'll have to pull that screw all the way out to get it in. The others, just back them off a little bit and slide those clips under. Pull this wire up so you can get the clamp around this black insulation on here. Tighten that screw down, and then that's it. Just put that cover on and put a screw in it. I'm going to split this insulation back here, and I'm going to get this bending tool on here. Or I can put a 9-degree bend on here. Right here at the center where this hole is. This can be done without the tool, but if you're not skilled at it, I wouldn't try it. Now I'm going to take this wrap that they sent me, and I'm going to start wrapping these lines and this hose and this wire together here. I'm going to wrap them all the way together up to the end here. Now I'm going to feed this wire through the wall. Push it off through the wall. I'm going to lift the unit up. I'm going to push this through the wall, through that hole up there, and hang it on these brackets where that bracket has a notch up there. Just hook up there and hang. And the rest of the installation will be done outside. So the other units, they only came with 1 ring, and I put it outside. And I imagine I'll probably have to take this one off. Now I'm going to straighten these lines. Just find something to put this edge under. And just roll the whole thing back to you and try to get it all straight. Now it's time for this Nylog blue. And I'm going to unscrew these 2 caps. And I'm going to pull these caps out. And I'm just going to put a ring around the copper line, just like an O-ring in there. I'm going to let this nut fall, and I'm just going to put a little ring right around this outside here. Get them lined up, screw it on, finger tight, and then I'll put these crescent wrenches on there and get them tight. Be careful not to bend the lines. So I wrapped it on down a length, and I let my water line come out here. And I kept wrapping the electrical and the high and low lines. And there's no stickum on that tape. You'll have to finish it up with a duct tape. So I'm going to set this up on these blocks here. This is temporary. I'm not sure if I'm going to leave it here yet. And I'm going to pull these couple screws and pull the cover off the electrical. And pull a couple screws off of here. And pull the cover off of this connection. I'm going to do the same thing. I'll remove these caps. And I'm going to put a little bit of that sealant on there. And I'm going to tighten these down. And so the valves are here, and I'm not going to open the valves. I'm going to hook the vacuum up here. I'm going to pull a vacuum on it, and then I'm going to turn it off, and I'm going to make sure it'll hold the vacuum for 30 minutes. And if it'll hold that vacuum, then I'll open these valves here and that'll charge the system. And what that's going to do is not going to vacuum this system. It's just going to vacuum the lines and the system that's inside. And this has a full charge in it. When I open these valves, it'll charge it all up. And while that's going on, I'll see if I can find a power cable. They didn't send me a power cable. And I'll hook some power up to here and get this line connected here. So you got these two lines tightened up here. And put your wrench on here and take this cap off. And whether you bought a pump, it might have come with a kit with some fittings in there. And the best bet, if you're going to do this, is get a valve stem removal tool, and it'll come with several fittings. But find the right fitting that's going to fit on that. They look like this. They're real similar, but if you look in there, you see the threads are different. And I was stuck for hours the other day. You see this one, it was broke off. See, this has a little depressor to press the valve stem. But this was broke off, and I sat there for 8 hours trying to pump a unit. Couldn't figure it out. But find the right one and screw it on there. And it should go on deep. And anything with these old fittings, just finger tight. Don't put no wrenches on there. Pull this off and hook the blue line up on your gauges. It'll just unscrew here from this quick connect. And connect this on this adapter. Not too tight, don't damage anything. And then close the high pressure and open the low pressure and turn on the pump. You can hear the pump. It's already pumped it down to where it needs to be. But now it's going to start steaming out. Any moisture that's in the line, you're going to see the tick in there. And what it does is during a vacuum, water boils at a lot higher temperature. And it's boiling and throwing off that steam. And so just let this run 15, 30 minutes or so. You might want to shut it off. And just to check, see that it's got a slow leak up. It isn't leaking real fast. You know, everything's connected good. And so that's good. Turn it back on and let it vacuum down for a good 15 minutes. And while that's going on, I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do about this wiring that they didn't send me. And so that control wire will look like that. Ground, 1, 2, and 3. And I'll just find a piece of Romex. And it'll hook up here, a line and a neutral, black line, white neutral, and a green, a ground over here. So it's been running a while I was looking for some line. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to close this valve here. And then I'm going to turn the pump off. And that should hold at that 1. I don't want to see it come down. I'm going to check the time now, and I'll come back in 15, 30 minutes and make sure it's still holding the vacuum. And that's going to let me know if there's a leak. And I know there's not a leak in the system because it's pressurized. And in the lines, you know, sometimes they leak, but they look like a good quality line. I like better quality than the last ones. So it's mainly just checking my fittings, where I tightened up the fittings, making sure that I'm not leaking. So that should look like this before you put the cover back on it. Black on the line, white on the neutral. And then just slip this cover back on there and put them a couple screws in. So the power's all connected. I imagine it's been 30 minutes or more. And I'm still holding a good vacuum. This should still be off. Make sure that's off. Now it's time to open the valves. Don't remove this blue hose until you got the system charged. Inside here, there's a couple caps. And you're going to pull these caps off and reach in here with an Allen wrench, whatever size fits them, and open those valves. You might have to start with the other end of this Allen wrench. It might be a little tight, but you don't want to open them too tight. You just want to open it like a valve. And you'll hear that gas flow. And so just open it all the way. Just don't try to open it too tight. Don't damage anything. And then the other one. And when you got these open, go ahead and put those caps back on and snug them down. And these are backups in case the valves leak. This will keep anything from leaking out of it. Put a wrench on there and put it a little snug. Try not to damage nothing. Wrong cap. And so now you check your gauges. And the gauges should read around 17. And that's what this system runs good at. There's nowhere to connect a high and a low to figure the system out because it's got a valve in it that changes up. And so all you can do is drain the system and make sure you put the right charge in the system to make it work. But this seems a little bit low. It seems like that usually runs about 17 and a half. It's looking at about 16 and 3/4 there. And so now it's all charged up. See, if I was to pull this hose off with that vacuum on it, it'd have sucked air, and I don't want that. I'd rather have it blow out a little bit of charge than suck any air. And then you can remove these. Do it quickly because it's going to be blowing oil and freon out. And then put this cap back on here and hit all three of these with the wrench and torque them down. Just a small wrench. You don't want to break anything. You just want to make sure the seal's tight in there in case the valves are leaking by. That'll cure any problem. Cover back on. Screw in the cover. Batteries in the remote. Power on. And then read the book to figure out how to use remote. 73. That's probably the temperature of the unit right now. So that was about 2 o'clock that it took to get installed. I don't know when I started. It must have been about 9. So probably took less than 5 hours to install it while making a video. And I removed these. They come in 2 pieces. So it snapped off there pretty easy. And I had to set it up to 74. It was entirely too cold in here. So I'm going to take this bag of clay they sent, and I'm going to pack it around here. That's going to keep any bugs or rats from getting in the wall. And that'll look about like that. And this outside unit, it's whisper quiet. You hear more wind than any engine noise, anything. And I'm going to put some of this Nylon blue around the threads of these caps. They don't have O-rings, but I'm just going to put some in the threads. And that's just a little security if the valves or the valve stem ever leaks by, that you won't lose any pressure. And just lightly snug that with a wrench. So this vacuum pump is a Viva Home. I'm pretty sure I found it on Temu. And like I say, it come with the gauges in this carrying case. And a box with some fittings and some O-rings that I added in there. Some other things that I thrown in here that I use. And I'm not too sure which all fittings it came with. But if it's only one you're going to do, you may be able to do without it. You may be able to rent one from AutoZone, from one of the auto places, which is the rent-free. You usually buy your Freon there, and they'll rent it to you and give you all your money. They'll take a $100 bill because that's about how much they charge for them. And it's a smaller unit. And when you bring it back, they'll give you your $100 bill back. But it's definitely quiet. I can now hear the ringing in my ears again. So they call this a Lusco 11.5 BTU Wi-Fi enabled mini split air conditioning heater. And after taxes, I give $366.78 for it. And now that I look back at it, it only came with one cable. It didn't come with the power cable. If you want to set it up on the wall, you can find these brackets for $15 there. And this Nylog blue, I found it at Walmart, and it cost 15 bucks. And I shopped around, that's the cheapest you're going to find it. And this vacuum pump was $121.87 delivered. And it looks like it's been marked down, it's cheaper now. And if you're going to go into business, I highly recommend this stem removal tool. And you can pick it up for $9.40 at Temu. And people will give up to $80 for these. And it'll come with that fitting you need. And the good thing about it is you can add your gauge here, and you don't lose any freon when you're trying to take it back apart, because you remove the valve stem and you put the valve stem back in. So I had to get out of there. It's entirely too cold. I'm going to have to read the manual and figure out how to warm it up some. But the reason I got that is so I could make more videos in the summer. That old air conditioning unit was so loud. It was rattling, and you could hear it on the videos. So I'll be able to get more videos out this summer. I'm going to cut this off here. Good day.